Welcome back. We're going to do a Tales from the Vault Tuesday. For today, we're going to learn some morbid history in Hancock County, Tennessee.
Hello everyone, and welcome into another episode of Tales from the Vault, where we will be doing tales from local history, childhood memories, true crime, paranormal, and legends. So sit back and let's enjoy this episode.
So I've been doing some research. I found some more morbid facts about Hancock County, Tennessee, where I grew up. These date back as far as the 1800s, 1870s to be in fact. There's quite a bit of morbid history over there. It's a very rural community, and a lot of things happened over there. People knew people, and still to this day, everyone knows everyone. So without further ado, let's learn some morbid history of Hancock County, Tennessee. These are from newspaper clippings. These are from the Historical Society. These are from doing research online. So these are what I have found and come up with. So let's get into it. These are newspaper clippings of crimes in Hancock County, Tennessee. October the 4th, 1871. We learned from the Rogersville Reporter that a difficulty occurred near Sneedville, Hancock County, on the 7th, between two men named Brewer and Goodman, in which Goodman was hit by projectiles and was deceased. Brewer, who was tried before the circuit court at Sneedville, was acquitted. The Morristown Gazette. December the 24th, 1873. Two young prisoners. Sheriff Gossett left last week with two prisoners, one John Farrell of Sneedville, Hancock County, and the other James Odell of Rogersville, Hawkins County, taking them back to their respective county jails. The former, apparently a youth of some 16 summers, had been sentenced to the penitentiary for 10 years on charges of unaliving, and the latter, also quite a young-looking man, had been sentenced to 4 years in the same institution for attacking someone. They both appealed to the Supreme Court, which reversed the decisions and remanded them back for a new trial. The Knoxville Weekly Chronicle. September the 17th, 1879. Unaliving. A woman by the name of Ray, if I'm not mistaken, these are from newspaper report clippings, was fired upon and passed last week near Sneedville, Hancock County. She was living with a man who had run off his wife and children for the purpose of taking her to his bosom. Parties calling themselves Cuxlux, that's what it says, and supposed to be in sympathy with the wife that was ran off, and children went to his house for the purpose of straightening up the false husband and firing at him accidentally. Struck the woman. She only spoke twice after being hit. The Morristown Gazette. June the 15th, 1887. Another fatal tragedy is reported to have taken place in Hancock County, 6 or 8 miles from Sneedville. William Cloud and Thomas Waddell got into a dispute over a yoke of oxen, and to settle the difference of opinion, Cloud resorted to his hip artillery, perforating Waddell's body with 5 projectiles and causing his instant demise. The parties were alone at the time, and we understand that Cloud claims to have acted in self-defense. The Morristown Gazette. July 7th, 1897. News comes from via Middlesboro, Kentucky, that in Hancock County, just over the Kentucky line, the body of an illegible preacher was found June the 29th, 1897, with 3 wounds in his head. The man's name is Forbes, but his home is not known. The Morristown Gazette. June the 30th, 1951. Execution by rope in Hancock County. The age-old story of how a woman got a man into trouble came to light again today with the discovery of old pictures. C.W. Johnson brought pictures into the Kingsport Times office last week. A faded picture card of the last man who was executed by rope in Hancock County more than 60 years ago. The picture card is the property of C.W. Johnson's father, F.M. Johnson, who, as a lad of 15, witnessed the execution of Marriott Hatfield. Unaliving and robbery. Hatfield had been involved in the unaliving and robbery of one Jones Trail. The woman he confessed put him up to the crime. Hatfield's full confessions is printed on the back of his picture and sold for 20 cents as a souvenir of the execution. The execution occurred in December 1896, and Johnson and his father recalled that crowd of some 2,000 curious spectators came into Sneeville to see justice done. Transcriber's note, according to the plain dealer, there were 5,000 present at the execution. The sheriff of Hancock County, one Buttrey by name, cut the rope that held Hatfield suspended. Johnson said his father told him when the rope was cut, the victim fell through the trapdoor on the scaffold and plunged into eternity. The gruesome sight. It was, Johnson's father told him, an unforgettable and gruesome sight. In his confession, Marriott Hatfield said all he got out of the robbery was $7.92 and the deceased man's pocket weapon. Faced with execution by the rope, Hatfield wrote he was ready to meet his maker. Read confession. And here is the confession of Marriott Hatfield, the first and last man ever executed by rope. Hancock County. Confession of Marriott Hatfield. Quote, I am condemned to execution by rope the 16th day of December, 1896, for the unaliving of Jones Trail. I was along with Haney Jordan on the night of the unaliving, and I assisted in the unaliving of Trail. We had planned the unaliving nearly 1 month before we did it. The Jordan woman and my wife were the cause of me being alone and taking part in the unaliving. A young man by the name of Sterling Allen called Trail from his boarding house. We called him Trail, and I hid until they went to the Tiger, whatever that was, and Allen got his liquor and left. Trail started back to his boarding house, and we slipped behind him. The Jordan woman knocked him down with a stick. Trail fell on his face. She turned him over and fatally wounded his neck. Trail was struggling, and I hit him on the head with a rock 2 or 3 times to stop him from making a noise. We searched his pockets and got a lot of money. I can't count money, and I don't know how much we got. The Jordan woman counted the money, and she gave me half of it. She gave me $7.92. I took the money and hid it. When I was arrested, I took the guards and gave them the money. I also got Trail's pocket weapon. I gave it up. I would not care so much to be executed by rope if Haney Jordan would be executed with me. If I was to do over, I would not do what I have done for the world. I know I have done wrong, but the Lord has forgiven me. I am going to be baptized Sunday, for I know the Lord has forgiven my sins, and I am going to a better world when I expire. I don't think hard of the jury that tried me. The court gave me a fair trial. I think a great deal of Judge Campbell. Sheriff Buttrey has treated me very kind all the time I have been in the Sneeville jail. I have nothing against anybody, but I am sorry that I let these women over-persuade me. This is about all I want to say. If I am executed by rope, I will tell the people all about it on the scaffold. Signed by Marriott Hatfield, Virginia print. Bells over the bed. One fall evening in 1923, Clay Underwood and his wife Sally were having supper. The night was thankfully quiet except for the chirping of the crickets and the call of the whippoorwill. Clay kept thinking he had forgot something, but dismissed the thought as he sat down to eat. He looked at Sally's face illuminated by the light of the kerosene lamp. He was happy with Sally. Clay remembered how he had met her. Sally Johnson taught school in Sneeville. Clay had gone over there to adjust the school's piano. He was a skilled piano and organ tuner. He and Sally became acquainted, and after seeing one another for a time, they got married. The pair moved into a 2-room frame house back in Short Mountain, which is where I grew up. Since Sally was from Short Mountain, the people there accepted Clay into their community. Things went well for a while, but Clay was a quaint sort of fellow. He dressed better than most. He was intelligent, and aside from tuning musical instruments, he repaired watches and clocks, and he was a herb doctor of some renown. Clay could curse eloquently and tended to be slightly arrogant with those he may have considered of lesser intellect than himself. He was an atheist, or at least pretended to be. He did not want the Bible read, nor prayers said in his home. Clay also was a miser of the first order. Many times Clay and Sally ate bread and meat grease to keep from spending money on food. Clay took eggs to the store like everyone else, but instead of bartering them all for goods, he wanted cash back. He did not trust banks and hid his money on his property. He buried money in jars and planted trees on top of them. When Clay passed away, maps were found showing where the money was hidden. It was dug up and taken to the bank in Sneeville. A few other people who knew him saw him differently. Imogene Spradling Landrum, who was married to Paul Johnson, said that although Clay was eccentric, he was a wonderful and warm-hearted man. He put on his ill-tempered act to keep certain people in awe of him, especially those that would have pestered him or would have wanted things from him. It worked for most people, left him alone. As a way of getting back at him, some people in Short Mountain had been pulling pranks and trying to scare Clay. At night, piles of brush were thrown into his yards and set ablaze. Flaming pine knots were thrown towards the house. Taunting voices came from nearby woods. Clay became alarmed and rigged up warning devices to signal the approach of intruders. He strung tripwires and strings around his yard, where they were attached to a line that connected to bales mounted above his bed. As Clay and Sally were eating their supper, the ringing of the bells in the other room brought Clay back to the present. He jumped up, ran into the other room, and grabbed his .45 caliber sidearm. He was scared. He heard a noise just outside the door. He jerked the door open and fired into the darkness. At a shadowy figure, George Johnson, Sally's brother, staggered into the room, clutching his chest. In horror, Clay remembered the hunting trip he and George had planned for that night. George moved on into the kitchen to Sally with a look of disbelief. Sally asked, "George, did he hit you?" Without speaking, George pulled back his coat, revealing a red-soaked shirt. He started to collapse. Clay caught him from behind and half carried, half dragged him into the other room and laid him on the bed. Clay ran to his neighbors, Frank and Annie Johnson, for help. Frank was also George's brother. Frank left immediately, riding his mare towards Tazewell to find Dr. George Lynch, who lived on Little Sycamore Creek. In the meantime, other Short Mountain relatives were notified of the accident. George's father, little Aaron Johnson, and Thomas Depew got there about the same time. Aaron was upset and grabbed Clay by the hair from behind with one hand, and while he tried to wound his throat with a pocket weapon in the other, but Tom Depew stopped him. Frank and Dr. Lynch arrived before morning. Frank had ridden the mare so hard it was rumored to have passed as soon as he got back. Aaron had taken his firearm with him when he got word of the accident, just in case. He had second thoughts on the way and hid his weapon in the barn. George's son, James Paul Johnson, found the weapon later. Paul was only 6 or 7 at the time. Tom Depew saw Paul at the barn struggling to carry the weapon. He asked him what he was doing with it, and Paul said he was going to fire on Clay Underwood. Tom took the weapon. Clay and Sally moved down out of the mountains to the camps. Camps is where I grew up. On property adjoining the east side of Walt Royston's farm. They operated a small store there on the highway. Clay and Sally never had any children. They remained until Clay passed away in the late 1940s. Clay now lies buried in the Green Cemetery nearby with only the chirping of the crickets and the call of the whippoorwill as company. Well, there you have it. Some more morbid history in the small town that I grew up in Hancock County, Tennessee. Like I said, the last story happened where I grew up. I grew up in what was referred to as the camps in Hancock County, Short Mountain to be exact. I lived there from the age of 6 until I got married at 25. So I lived there for 19 years. My mom and dad still lives there. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it gives you a little glimpse into the things that can happen in these small rural areas. You know, it's not just Hancock County. These kinds of things back in the day happened everywhere. It was pretty prevalent back in the day because, you know, sometimes the law wasn't available. So they took the law into their own hands. So I hope you like this video. I hope you give it a thumbs up. I hope you subscribe. I hope you comment down below. And I hope you share this video. And I'll see you guys on the flip side. Bye.